Now let's talk about the extraction of these metals. Now, for the extraction of metals, first thing that you require is a knowledge of reactivity series, which I believe you have now. So the reason we're going to use reactivity series over here is because the metals that we want to extract and their availability in nature is dependent upon their reactivity. Now, if you look at the reactivity series quite close, you would understand that there are some which are highly reactive and there are some which are not so reactive. And with this, the reactivity series has been divided into three parts. One which is highly reactive, which starts from potassium and ends up to aluminium. And then you have the medium reactive metals, which starts from zinc and goes up to copper. And finally, you have the not so reactive or very less reactive elements, which are silver and gold. Now, when you talk about the highly reactive metals, you do not find them in nature in their free state. You would always find them in a compound. These compounds are known as ores. They may be either sulfide or oxides, but for highly reactive, usually you only have the oxides. Then you have the medium reactive metals, which can be found in nature either in the sulfide-ores or in the oxide-ores. Then you have silver and gold, which are not so reactive, and hence you do not find them in ores. Usually you can find silver in its ore of sulfide, but gold not so much. There was a case in Australia wherein a person who was walking through the outbacks, which is a desert, he mistakenly stumbled over a huge piece which he thought was a rock. And upon closer inspection, he understood that it wasn't just a rock, it was pure gold. Now that we've seen how reactivity series would help us in grouping the elements according to the reactivity for the process of extraction, let's look at what the actual process of extraction is. So now you have an ore. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to concentrate the ore, that is enrichment or concentration of the ore. Now what happens in this is actually whenever you have an ore, it is highly concentrated with impurities like sand, soil, etc. And this can be called as gangue. Now these impurities have to be removed, and the process for removing this gangue is called as concentration of the ore. Now, as we have said, the metals are divided into high, medium and low reactivity. So each of them has a different process. Let's start with metals of high reactivity. So for the metals of high reactivity, you need a process called as electrolysis of molten ore. And then what you get is the pure metal. Then talking about the metals of medium reactivity, there are two types of ores in this. One is a carbonate ore, the other is a sulfide ore. Each of these ores have a different process to be followed. For carbonate ore, what you need to do is calcination. For a sulfide ore, what you need to do is roasting. Now we'll talk about these terms, calcination and roasting, in detail when we talk about the processes individually. Then, after calcination or roasting, you get the oxide of the metal, which is then to be reduced to the metal, that is the reduction process. And finally, you have the purification of metal and you get the pure metal. Then the metals of low reactivity. Now in this, all you have for the sulfide ore, the process is of roasting. And from roasting, what you get is the metal. And finally, you have to refine it and you have the metal in your hand. Now let's discuss the process for each and every class of element according to its reactivity in detail.